Hello, it's good to see everyone here. We're happy to be here to share about what we're doing at Calbright, reimagining the student journey, and really thinking about scaffolding learning and support through data insights. I'm Don North, Vice President of Student Success at Calbright, and I'm here with my colleagues, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm Shannon McCarty, Vice President of Learning and Instruction.
And I'm Vivek Vyas, Chief Product Officer, Calbright College.
Great. And if anyone wants to contact us, the best email address is right there on the screen, connect@calbright.edu. So today we'll give you some background and introduction about Calbright. We'll step into the Student Journey 2.0, what we're doing in that space. We'll talk about the learning that happens at Calbright and how we design. And then we'll dive into the technology, intelligent tools, and data infrastructure required for our online environment. We'll talk a little bit about impact so far, and then maybe share some takeaways that you can think about as you go back to your institutions.
The legislation that founded Calbright was really incredible. It was an important foundation for California to really lead into the coming years from the perspective of what California communities needed. Instead of saying we were going to create a new online college, it was about saying we're going to serve a community of learners that has been left behind better. And to design a college from the ground up, looking at it from the lens of learners and prospective learners who would otherwise not have an access point in our higher educational system, was a pretty remarkable frontier to cross.
Calbright is different from other community colleges because we're really focused in on a competency-based education, direct assessment framework. And that's a really fancy way of saying we're really taking the time to get to know what our students know and get to know where there are areas and gaps.
Competency-based education says you have mastered something in a way that's demonstratable, not only to the student, but to the employer as well.
The program design is really important. So when we are connecting with advisory boards, we're really getting key input into what skills are needed for students. And so we're really focused on intentional design that will help them be workforce ready.
So when an employer hires a new employee, they expect them to have certain skills to do the job. And so what my team does is really reach out and reach in to figure out where do they need help? Where do they need better understanding? Where do they need better supports? Because every single student is different. Every single student has a different life experience, has different job experience, has different goals, has different dreams. So we're really looking at the holistic picture of the student's life and the student's growth journey, in addition to the academic pathway and the industry skills that they're building.
I'm very passionate about this moment that we're in because I can see the deep need that we have, both as a state and as a country, to do better by the communities that we serve.
It was literally the lowest risk, highest reward decision I've made in my life, and it has already been life-changing.
There's a saying that says, as California goes, so goes the nation. I actually believe that. And so Calbright is a shining star relative to making that happen.
All right. So if you haven't heard about Calbright, we're really excited about the work we're doing. You know, we are part of the community college system in California. And we are statewide, which is unique in the community college system and purely online. We have short-term certificates, which typically range from 6 to 12 months. Some are a little longer. And of course, they can be completed in a shorter amount of time, but that's what we see typically. We're targeting adult learners, you know, with a high school diploma or GED, and our average student is about 40 years old. We're competency-based direct assessment, and you'll hear more of that from my colleague Shannon. And we also are really integrating work-based experiences. We know, particularly for this student body, that who are interested in changing careers or advancing, those work-based learning experiences are really important. And then, of course, you know, when you think about students who may not have been in a formal education setting for decades potentially, or have never learned online before, those holistic and integrated supports are really key to bringing students along and building the scaffolding they need to be successful. And ultimately, not only, of course, making sure students complete and get certificates, but we are really looking to empower them for greater economic and social mobility. That is our end goal. And really all the work we do is aimed at that. So really briefly, you did hear about our learners. We recognize that many populations face structural barriers. And so Calbright is really designed to lower a lot of those traditional thresholds that keep people away from education and keep people from learning. We're almost 8,000 students today. We've awarded over 1,500 certificates. We have 9 programs launched, and those are really focused on the areas that we see opportunity in. And we are almost in every single county across California. And as you can see here, you can see some of the demographic information on the side of this slide here. I'm not going to repeat those now. And then as we design the ecosystem, again, that you'll hear more details about, we really think about some of these design principles underneath everything we build. Number one, we're student-centered. And so we truly engage students and involve students in the design of anything new. Their voices and also their participation are really critical so that we're not just generalizing, but creating specifically for our student body. We're tech forward. The technology, we're an online college, and so technology is infused and part of and integral to every piece that we build. And so it's a major and primary consideration for whatever we build. We're direct assessment, competency-based education. And again, you'll hear more about that from Shannon McCarty. And then we offer really significant and holistic support that I'll talk about in a little bit. And lastly, like I mentioned before, experiential learning and work-based learning is just so critical for students to get practice applying the skills they're learning in their courses. And so we're constantly looking to integrate and provide those opportunities for our students. So, like every college, we have a journey that our students go through. And currently now, as we build better infrastructure and better technology, we've able to kind of move forward to a next iteration of our student journey that we'll talk a little bit about here today. So I'll do a quick overview and just highlight some of the features that we're building in. Ultimately, Student Journey 2.0 is really designed to understand our students well so that we can customize their learning journey. That is both academically, and like I said, those holistic supports, in addition to every other kind of intervention. In order to do that well and personalize it, we need to know our students. And so outreach engagement is not generalized again, but it's based on the student's needs and goals. Student Journey also over indexes on the strong start to make sure students know what they've signed up for and have what they need to be successful moving forward. We have integrated services that start from day one, including career services. That is not an afterthought, but something that is driven through the whole student journey. And then moving into this world of AI, AI is kind of that we're building in some of those pieces, but human in the loop, having those, the really important part of the whole equation are service staff and counselors and instructors. They're a critical part. So AI is really a partnership with humans and our staffing. And so really quickly, our student journey looks like this in a nutshell. We start off with a program navigator that helps students choose the best program for them. They jump into an orientation after the California Community College process, and that orientation is asynchronous and modular. They'll take an intake assessment that gathers some critical information that helps us identify students' needs and goals. The enrollment agreement is kind of a final step in committing to the program. Like I said, we have reduced a lot of thresholds, so it's very easy to actually join Calbright. We're also free of tuition right now, although that may shift over time. But we want to make sure that students know what they're getting into, and just because we've reduced those thresholds, that they know kind of what's ahead and they have what they need. A really important part and where they spend most of their time is in the learning pathway. And that's, of course, engaged in the academic programs, building those industry skills through competency-based learning. In addition, like I said, those supports are built in, whether it's accessibility needs or career services or just kind of organizational skills. All of those things are integrated. Finally, there's a moment of offboarding where we set them up for the next step into that alumni community where they're continually supported and look at either work or continuing education. And you can see down below, AI tools are built in. And as we think about personalized support, I've mentioned this a few times before, but here are some of the critical pillars. Well-being. We know if students are not healthy and balanced, it's really hard to be successful. So we have a third-party company called Timely Care that we use for well-being support, and that's mental health, that's virtual physical health. And so we find a lot of students using those services. Belonging. We know that students, especially new learners, coming back to an academic setting online is sometimes can be hard. And so feeling part of the community is really important motivation to get them back. So creating a sense of belonging, giving opportunities to engage is really important. We have integrated personal supports offered by counselors and the persistence team, tutoring service and instructors. All of those folks are really looking to support students for whatever their needs are. And like I mentioned before, career preparation and that career intervention, a lot of our students, 80% of our students are here because of career goals. And so bringing in career services and career support and readiness from the beginning helps motivate our students and help them keep their eye and motivation on the prize as they work through their courses. So I'm going to pass to Dr. McCarty to just talk about the learning journey and what that looks like.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dawn. And hopefully, I know that we cannot see you, but hopefully you are starting to lean into the presentation and really excited to kind of listen and learn what we're sharing. And the next part is really talking about the learning pathway. And so direct assessment, I'm sure many of you have heard the term used frequently, but I just want to give you a little bit of the pillars that make up Calbright's direct assessment framework. And so when we really think about direct assessment, it's direct evaluation of what students have mastered and the competencies that they are learning within that program. So we don't rely heavily on a lot of traditional methods or passive forms of assessment like multiple choice questions, but really it's directly assessing the skills and abilities that the students can demonstrate. So one of the first things that we want to do is always think about accurate measurement of competencies. So we really ensure that the evaluations of students' skills closely aligned to the intended measures. And so this really ensures that educators are able to verify not just theoretical learning, but practical application. And we do this with real world applicability. So by focusing on projects and simulations that students will actually see in the workforce and or real life challenges, it helps bridge the gap between academic theory and practical application. And it makes education more relevant to those professional environments. A third part of this is personalized feedback. In the direct assessment model, students have lots of opportunities to resubmit for mastery. And so it's really key that our instructors are providing personalized, detailed feedback on each individual's performances. And this really helps students understand their strengths or areas where they still need to improve. So it's really crucial and part of the guide to help students enhance their skills throughout their program. And then motivation and engagement. Students are more engaged and motivated when they see the direct relevance of their coursework to real-world situations. And direct assessment really fosters the environment where students feel that educational activities are meaningful. And then the last one is really flexibility and relevancy, and we really double down on relevancy. The flexibility of the model really allows students to go as fast or slow, depending on their life circumstances. And so direct assessment also really encourages relevancy. And I even like to think some innovation because we like to think about the innovative ways that we can evaluate competencies for students. Next slide, please, Dawn. And as previously mentioned, our direct assessment model is focused on industry relevant skills, which for Calbright means pulling Lightcast data and directly linking those skills to assessments and content. And so this really allows us to personalize the student's pathway, and it's based on the student's prior knowledge and skills and that they bring to the table, realizing that they bring robust knowledge, and then really being able to move students to the appropriate next steps in their program pathway. So if a student pre-assesses and they have a really high score, it will move them directly to the summative because we know that they are ready to show evidence that they can demonstrate those skills. And for students that aren't ready, then we'll move them to aligned content and formative practice. so that they can really enhance and support any missing knowledge and skills along the way. So as students are moving through their personalized pathway, they're able to see their progress, they're able to earn badges. We help them start building out their portfolio and even their resume. So we know how important it is for students to demonstrate what they're able to do and the knowledge they have through projects. And so that's kind of the evidence and artifacts that students are putting together as they move through these program pathways. And it's really that integrated approach and intentional opportunities to ensure that students are workforce ready. Students are also going to be co-enrolled in a student orientation, which will highlight kind of the process and model that they will learn throughout their program journey. So they'll have access to student key success resources. They have a robust support team, as Dawn mentioned, along the way. So lots of individuals supporting them and making sure that they get the right touch at the right moment with the right technology. And so other pieces of kind of integration that we've been focused on is the integration of durable skills. So we know how important it is for students to walk away with effective communication and critical thinking. And so we don't make that as like a side project. It's actually integrated throughout the program. So they are able to build, scaffold, and learn those skills as they move through their program. And then another key piece of our programs is work-based learning. So we've had some great partnerships with Ripen, for example, where students are able to choose to do real-world projects with employers. They get employer feedback. They are able to start building out their resume as well, because it's now a work experience that they have encountered with an employer. And those are 100% accessible for all of our students because they are all remote learning opportunities for students as well. All right, so next slide, please. And why this matters. So as Dawn mentioned, you learned about Calbright and who we serve. We are definitely driven and we are definitely built to serve the adult learner. And so really when we think about our model and what we're doing, we double down on andragogy and as well as think significant learning experiences. And so we really want to honor the experience that our adult learners bring to the table. We know they bring a wealth of knowledge, professional experience and lived realities. And so part of our program allows students to bring that in. So we go through prior learning assessments, we have performance-based tasks, and it's even a self-paced mastery program. So students are able to demonstrate at their own pace. And we also really promote learning how to learn and foundational knowledge. So we know that learners, where they start is extremely important, and we don't want it to be remedial. And so we want to make sure that within that program pathway, we're embedding those opportunities so students understand where their strengths are and also like their own kind of like learning journey. So, and we also, we do integrative learning. So helping students link past experiences to new domains. So making sure that they understand that, maybe the experience they had being an Uber driver and some of those communication skills also can transfer to their new job opportunities. So really learners aren't starting over, they're leveraging what they already know to accelerate progression. Another thing is really thinking about adult learners, and they tend to be goal-oriented. And so we really want to focus in on increasing motivation. And they want to see clear alignment of what they're learning and how that will impact their professional goals. So our direct assessment model really helps promote autonomy, self-direction, and relevance, and knowing how important that is, again, for the adult learner. So the system itself becomes motivational. So as students see their mastery, they get to see their progress within the program that builds on the momentum to finish the program. Also really think about employability. So adults prefer learning that is problem-centered and immediately applicable to real-life tasks. And this really aligns with the competency mapping, the skills alignment that students are able to see, and kind of the behaviors and demonstration of those skills through the program. So really emphasize application and the human dimension. So it's not just that we are just putting content in front of them, but we're really trying to link the skills that they need for jobs and making sure that they have employer-aligned projects and real-world artifacts to help build their resumes and portfolios. Equity-centered is extremely important as well. We know that our students all come from different starting points. And so CBE really allows for flexibility and personalization to help mitigate that one-size-fits-all model that you often see for the underserved learner. And so we really promote the human dimension. So helping students identify, what they're bringing to the table, their capabilities, and the context of their learning. And then decrease time to completion. For adult learners, they want efficiency. So they're trying to juggle work, family, school, life events. And so really our direct assessment model and the flexibility allows them to show what they already know and then move forward. And this really also encourages momentum to ensure that the learners have a clear map of where they're headed and what mastery looks like along the way. So really the focus is no wasted time and progression is tied to completion. All right, so what we're kind of seeing and this is in this this data set, what you're seeing is average days to completion. And we had taken our kind of previous learning model and then moved it, and when we moved over to our direct assessment model, kind of mapped out to see what students, if we were seeing an actually decrease in progress. And so the chart really compares the average number of days students took to master competencies in a data analysis program, and it was delivered in 2 instructional models. So direct assessment, competency-based education platform, where it allows students to demonstrate mastery, and then our kind of previous CBE model that didn't include the pre-assessment, and it didn't allow for more of a personalized pathway. So this chart shows a side-by-side average across 11 different competencies, and it highlights the differences in student pacing, efficiency gains, and areas for further calibration as we have an opportunity to continue to improve upon our direct assessment model. And so overall, we did see a lower average of time to mastery across several of the competencies. So, this is early information, but it does seem to suggest that there is increased learning efficiency and better alignment for self-paced for adult learners. So we're going to continue to look at this, but we are excited to see kind of this early analysis and early information that is showing kind of gains in efficiency for the adult learner. Then one of the other things that is extremely important as Calbright, as we implemented our direct assessment model, is we really want to follow the data to ensure that we are adhering to the previously mentioned principles and there aren't any unintended consequences with the model. So this table actually is an example of a disaggregated data, and we look across several different demographic components. This one actually is very specific for equity and race, but we also look at gender, previous educational experience, student intent, comfort level with technology, et cetera, et cetera. And what we really do is try to identify, based on this disaggregation, days to mastery by competency. And so the goal is to identify if there are patterns of learning progress across different demographics. We evaluate the equity and learning progression. We try to spot if there are any outliers or variability that can inform support strategies or infrastructure design. And then also all of this informs continuous improvement in our CBE delivery. And it really highlights where either certain groups may need additional resources, scaffolding, or we might need even to review the assessments and even the type of content that is being provided for students. So what we have learned, and again, we're measuring this across all of our programs, is most competencies show equitable median time to mastery across different racial groups. So we haven't been leaving anybody out, and there is equity in learning. And then if there are some outliers, we are able to think through what those challenges might be and then provide more targeted interventions and support services. So our system really is designed with equity in mind, but targeted and aligned support services will really help us to continue to hone in and reduce any of these outlier experiences. And now I get to hand it over to my colleague Vivek, and he's going to talk more about technology, intelligent tools, and data infrastructure.
Thank you, Shannon. And although we're not interacting with you all in real time, I hope our presentation today is going to give you some insight into how we are approaching the shared challenge in higher ed that we are all in together to solve. Let's go to the next slide. Let me start by talking about Calbright's product-led approach to building the student experience. That means we organize around outcomes rather than outputs, owning the learner journey end-to-end, running continuous discovery, and shipping small, testable releases that measurably improve success. We ground decisions in real student insight. We learn through interviews and surveys, observe user behavior with an experience analytics platform, analyze learning and engagement data, and synthesize both quantitative and qualitative findings. These insights become clear problem statements, testable hypotheses, and success metrics in the backlog. For students, this shows up as fewer clicks to value, a single coherent front door, and just-in-time support embedded in the flow of work, delivered in thin slices and refined based on observed behavior. And our product vision, as you can see here, captures it all and always guides our design. Next slide, please. So, like I said, our product vision guides us and anchors us in who we are here to serve. In a product-led practice, we translate that vision into evidence-based personas, so we design for those who need our help the most. This is our North Star. So we design for students like Mariah. Mariah is a stability-seeking career changer, balancing work and caregiving, short on time, cautious with technology, and needing clear, actionable steps. Designing the learning ecosystem for Mariah means flexibly paced, competency-based modules she can dip into between shifts, mobile-friendly, low-friction experiences, and tailored learning, support, and outreach. Support meets her where she is with proactive nudges and a clear human handoff when she's stuck. Intake and ongoing assessments tailor her path, recognize prior learning, and align projects to employer-valued skills. We know it's working when engagement rises, milestones are met on schedule, stop-outs decline, and job outcomes improve, all measured through our data infrastructure and tools that we have put in place for the same. If it is not working for Mariah, we take the signal, adjust, and iterate. Next slide, please. Our product vision guides us and anchors us in who we serve, designing for students like Mariah, as we just saw. The discovery and the design approach is how we stay true to that, turning student voice into decisions we can build, test, and learn from. We start with direct student input, interviews, and surveys that surface real constraints and motivators, and translate those into findings, into evidence-based personas that keep teams aligned on the learner we are solving for. We use participatory design, inviting students and staff to co-create solutions, pressure test assumptions, and expose friction early. Then we iterate deliberately. Cross-department reviews, focus groups, and structured feedback loops help us refine the experience before and after the release. The result is a learning ecosystem that evolves with evidence, faster paths to value, clearer next steps, and supports that show up exactly when they're needed. Next slide, please. Let me talk a little bit about our student portal. This is an important piece of the learning ecosystem and a vehicle for delivering a seamless student experience. It is our single pane of glass, one place that pulls services and data together from internal and external systems, so learners don't have to hop across systems. Backed by a unified data layer connecting the student information system, CCC Apply, the learning management system, and scheduling and collaboration tools. It turns disparate signals into a coherent picture that enables timely help and clear next steps. Functionally, it behaves like one product: integrated support and communications, real-time progress and status view for the students, embedded tools and knowledge resources, and inline feedback so we can improve continuously without sending students elsewhere. The result is a unified, student-centered experience that minimizes frictions, shortens time to value, and aligns every touch point to the same promise of seamless and supportive learning. Next slide, please. To use data to build a real understanding of our student, we first had to bring it all together and make it trustworthy. Our first order of work was integration, consolidating signals from the student information system, CCC Apply, and the LMS, the student portal, Slack, and Zoom into a single repository that becomes our source of truth for both analytics and applications. The result is a coherent, high-quality data backbone that turns disparate events into timely, actionable insight, fueling a seamless student-centered experience across our learning ecosystem. Next slide, please. As the saying goes, insights are only as good as the data behind them. With that in mind, we've built a data governance framework to increase reliability and trust. Governance makes our unified data reliable by design across 4 pillars: security, quality, privacy, and FAIRPA-aligned compliance. In practice, that means least privilege access with single sign-ons and multi-factor authentication, encryption in transit and at rest, and audit logs, data contracts, validation at ingestion and lineage, role-based access with retention schedules and de-identification, plus regular vendor and access reviews. We developed standards that go beyond just documentation. Each control is actionable and directly informs our data classification, privacy, and security roadmaps and initiatives. So data is trusted, issues resolve faster, and interventions remain safe and ethical. Agile is how we turn the vision into shipped outcomes. We run a simple cadence. The roadmap becomes a prioritized backlog. Cross-functional teams deliver thin slices in short sprints. Each sprint includes planning, daily syncs, a demo with students or staff, and a retrospective. Every slice is instrumented: activation, time to first value, milestone completion, and must meet a clear definition of done, including accessibility, QA, and security checks. We release continuously, learn from analytics and feedback, and feed those learnings into the next sprint. As we leverage AI, we remain steadfast in our objective. Our goal is to augment human support and personalize learning, not replace people. We have taken a very use case-driven approach, starting with a clearly defined student problem, build the smallest useful capability, measure impact, and iterate with a human in the loop. Practically, that means using our unified data to power CalC, or Calbright Learner Success Engine, which is an engine we're developing and that combines predictive analytics and learning and interaction signals into a 360-degree view of each learner and outputs proactive recommendations for outreach that reduces stopouts and supports personalized learning pathways. We anchor this in guardrails: privacy by design, role-based access, and FAIRPA-aligned practices, bias and drift checks during evaluations, and phased rollouts with A/B tests so features earn their way into broader use. Success is defined by movement on student outcomes, activation, milestone completion, help seek latency, retention, and job results. When the data shows a gap, we adjust the model, the workflow, or both, and we envision AI will be an ethical and measurable accelerator of our student success. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Don.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Vivek. And hopefully what you heard from Shannon and Vivek is a really kind of in-depth, really thoughtful kind of perspective and approach to how we build out both our ecosystem and experience. And that's really important, obviously. You know, the experience of students is not simply, getting through, but having engagement, having kind of good pathways of support, also having data and infrastructure that supports our staff and faculty. All of these are critical to building this ecosystem. So I want to quickly just touch on a little bit of impact, kind of first view on. You heard some of the evidence from Dr. McCarty's kind of the learning environment there. What I want to share here is just a few things we've seen early on in Journey 2.0 as we roll out different elements of that structure. So the first thing, Journey Starter is our intake assessment. It's a way we collect some key information early on in students. And before we had this intake assessment, or the Journey Starter as referenced here, we collected a little bit of information during orientation and onboarding. When students first signed up, they get a little information about Calbright, and they give us a tiny bit of information as well. And so one of the things we collected was information on students who were interested in basic needs support. From that poll. We reached out to students who indicated a need, either housing insecurities, food insecurities, job insecurities, things like that. We reached out and asked them to make an appointment with our counselors who could help direct them towards the right resource. In that method, kind of before Journey 2.0, we had about 22% of students making appointments with counselors. And after, kind of with the new intake assessment and a kind of a stricter nudge to make appointments with counselors, we saw a significant increase in appointments for those students identified as students who needed basic needs, up to 87%. So huge impact right there. And there's lots of questions to ask in addition to this, but the main thing is we have students engaging with counseling who have shown to really support students. The second thing I think is really interesting, the intake assessment helps us categorize students based on need. Right now, it's kind of big buckets, and down the road, it will be more personalized, but we have students designated as low needs, students who kind of can fast track and have experience in this space before, medium needs who may need some additional supports, but probably can go with some nudging and light support from our staff, and then higher need students who may have significant barriers like language barriers, digital literacy barriers, or basic needs. And so things that we think will get in the way of progress. When we ran a pilot with Journey 2.0 with an intake assessment matched with counselor outreach specifically towards those level 3 base high need students, we saw this this second chart shows that students identified as level 1 low need students made about 5% progress after about 9 weeks. Students designated as medium needs, again, no need to meet with counselors, but identified that way. Again, similar 5% pace of progress. But students identified as higher need students who were highly recommended to meet and make appointments with counselors, we show more than triple the progress. So this kind of shows us a couple things. One, students who engage with our support systems are more likely to do better. But I think what is significant is that students that we've identified as some of the higher need students are making more progress than students either identified as medium or low needs. And so that right there is really interesting, really encouraging, and kind of proves a little bit about the value of support, but also getting students into those support systems. Because, one of the challenges is keeping students engaged, making sure they're getting the support they need amongst their busy lives. Our students are juggling a lot of things. So this is super encouraging. Obviously, just the interaction that's happening here with support is great, but also the infrastructure that we're building to help kind of guide students into the right supports is really critical to this whole thing as well. And so we kind of wanted to end with some high-level takeaways, and Vivek and I kind of share a few things with you that we think is worth highlighting, and taking away back to your own institutions and places where you're working. The first is that, student-centered and co-designing with students is just critical. It seems like a no-brainer. Of course, you would ask students about the things you're designing. But I think often as institutions, we make assumptions. We think we know our students best, and we do. We have a lot of experience, but actually asking our students and our student body, not just generically, but actually deeply engaging, really breaks down a lot of the assumptions we make and show some of the nuances that we should design for. And then involving students in the co-design work and the designing of solutions has been really powerful and valuable too. And it not only helps us with really kind of nuanced design, but also really empowers the student for their career trajectory. And like I mentioned, social and economic mobility, these opportunities to help build are really powerful for her students. The second thing, of course, is personalization for adult learners, making sure that we know what they are coming in with, because we know our students come in with a lot of experience, a lot of work experience, and that they're not just coming in fresh, knowing nothing. And so identifying the skills they bring in, and then kind of setting personalized paths for the things they need to learn to achieve academic success is really important and necessary for adult learners. And Vivek, I'll let you take that last one if you want to jump in.
Sure. I'll just make 3 points about how you can build your learning ecosystem, or what our approach has been and how we hope it can benefit you. The first one being build a single unified student experience platform, such as a student portal. That's a pretty powerful vehicle for delivery of the student experience. So bring all of your data together, for whether it's from your CRM, your SIS, or other third-party applications, to build your applications and the student experience on top of. So really providing that single pane of glass for all services and communication and content. The second thing I would say is build a good data governance framework, because your insights and your decisions are only going to be as good as your data. So thinking about that data quality, the data security, data privacy, as well as compliance, those four pillars that we have employed for data governance is crucial. And then lastly, as AI becomes omnipresent, and we're certain that all of us will need to use it more and more, and it's a good tool to use, but it's really important to be careful about how we approach it. And so definitely use it as a tool to augment your ecosystem. But our approach has been to use it very intentionally through a use case-based approach. So think about the use cases where it can be applicable, and then always design for keeping the human in the loop, so you can maintain and preserve that human touch and that empathetic touch while using the power of AI to scale.
Okay, great. Well, we are at the end. Really happy and excited that you joined us today. We'd love to hear from you if you want to know more or want to connect or want to build something together. We are always looking for those partnerships and building out our network. So please do go and get in touch. And thanks for joining us today.